Well, the government doesn't want to tell us, and they don't want to tell us because they think we've been abducted by aliens, which seems just as bizarre. I mean, I can't even believe I'm actually saying that.
Hello, everyone. Today, I would like to welcome our guest, Alan Steinfeld. Alan is a filmmaker, journalist, and a lecturer for over 30 years, investigating all aspects of consciousness from ancient cultural rituals to the UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena. He is also an author with his most recent book titled Making Contact, Preparing for the New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence, which is a #1 bestseller on Amazon in this field of study. Alan also hosts his own YouTube channel called New Realities, where he explores topics such as metaphysics, spirituality, and disclosure. He has cataloged over 2,500 interviews with some of the most prestigious leaders in this field, and we are excited to have him here to discuss his experiences. So welcome, Alan. We are so glad to have you talk with us today.
So great to see you and Tracy there. Tara. Hi, thanks for my invitation here. So
Great.
Let's talk about anything you want. Ask me anything.
Alan, I consider you a bit of a way shower for us in the sense that you've had the opportunity to meet and interview so many prominent figures discussing spirituality and consciousness, people such as Deepak Chopra, Dr. Joe Dispenza, and Bruce Lipton, and of course, one of my very favorites, Daryl Anka, who channels Bashar. So, with all of that experience, talking with some of these amazing leaders in this great awakening movement, can you please share with us what are some of the biggest insights you've taken away from some of these discussions?
Yeah, it's been really exciting to search out new life and new civilizations and new thought and new thinkers. And I look for people with new ideas for my YouTube channel. I've been at that since the mid 1990s. Even before there was YouTube, I was doing interviews on a local public access station. And then I had all those interviews to just put up to YouTube as soon as it, was happening. So I've been looking for people who had alternate ideas about the nature of reality. I think some of the superstars I found, I mean, I can't say I discovered Bruce Lipton, but I was one of the first to find out who he was and his genius. I was reading this very obscure magazine in Washington State, and there was an article by Bruce Lipton, and I said, I have to meet this guy. So I went to his home, and he was just so available, so friendly, so wise. So one of the things he says is that we are not humans until we create humanity. Humanity is when we all come together and realize that our consciousness is connected, that we're all part of this super organism called humanity. I think, wow, that makes sense. And I put that in my book, Making Contact, because he says it's not until we realize that we have this oneness of consciousness will we meet other onenesses out in the open. I mean, of course, things are appearing and disappearing from our skies, but we're really not going to have a solid contact experience for the planet until we realize that we are all connected as one species, as one being. And that came from my initial contact with Bruce Lipton. Him, people like Nassim, Harmin, the black hole inside everything. People like that. Well, I've been just, as our good friend Bashar says, I've just been following my passion. And my excitement is looking for new ideas, discovering new ideas and presenting them to the world. I go with really what is most exciting, what information is really cutting edge. And there's nothing more cutting edge than the UFO phenomenon and how we're going to integrate that into this, paradigm of what we think the world is, because the world obviously is not what we think it is. It's something other than that. partly some of it is true, but partly there's so many gaps in our knowledge. And that's what's so exciting, I think, now in this time is seeing what the gaps are.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've noticed it just seems like this whole concept of UFOs, or now UAPs, as I guess what we're calling them, aliens, extraterrestrials, it's becoming more of a prominent subject, even I'm hesitant to say mainstream media, but it's kind of leaking its way into that. Now we've got people like David Grush who are standing in front of Congress speaking the truth, saying, this is what I know, right? And that's going to open the doors for other people to have that awareness as well, especially the naysayers maybe who have always said, well, show me, prove things, prove it to me. What is causing this? Where is this coming from? Is this an agenda that's being put forth to open our eyes to the fact that there's more here because we're getting ready to have full disclosure? Or is some of this information just leaking out? People's consciousness is being raised, so they're more open to hearing this information. What do you think about all that?
It's all of the above. So the modern day UFO phenomenon. So in 1947, there was the flying saucer craze. Kenneth Arnold saw these ships over Mount Rainier and said, oh, they look like they're saucers skipping. And then a week later, there was the Roswell incident, which was saying, oh my God, flying saucer has crashed in Roswell. And then the next day they said, no, it was mistaken, weather balloon. And from there, it's been this cover up and leaking and cover up and denial and ridicule. So that brought us all the ways to from 1947 to 2017, 70 years later. New York Times releases a story saying there's a secret government program that is studying UFOs. And then that was on the front page of the New York Times. And the media then says, what? You mean there really are UFOs? And then it became okay, because the New York Times did it, to start to write about it and say, yes, there's UFOs, there's a secret government program. There's people coming forward inside the government acknowledging these secret programs. So while that's happening, what we also get is increased sightings worldwide. People are having experiences. And maybe the reason for that is that the vibration of the planet, of us human beings, is raising a little more. Just the vibration of the planet and human beings and the state of our consciousness is shifting, where we can start to realize like how ridiculous it is to think we're all alone in the universe. It's like thinking the world is flat. Of course, some people still think it's flat, or we're the center of, we're the center of creation. That was something that Copernicus said. Nope, the earth is not the center of creation. And then Galileo proved it by his telescope. And of course, he was put in prison for the rest of his life after proving that. So anytime the paradigm is upset a little bit, it's ridiculed. Those people are silenced. And it's like, until there's a tide change where we're all pushing for something, and then boom, this is the next people's movement. This is the latest. There was just a rally in front of Chuck Schumer's office. So people are saying, no, I've seen something, and you can't tell me I haven't seen it, and you can't tell me it's Venus or a man-made object when it zooms off like that, or it circles around and there's no propulsion. And their sightings are increasing worldwide. And it's not just in the US, it's everywhere, every country. So something's happening where it goes back to what you were saying. The vibration has shifted where we can now allow that consideration into human consciousness. And this is going to change everything. This is going to change government secrets, all how we think about ourselves. This is a renaissance, and it's not something to be feared. I think the biggest thing to fear are other humans. I don't think aliens, are anything to fear. That's why they're not showing up on the White House lawn, because they don't want to freak people out, even though they do have like abductions or whatever you want to call those interactions.
Bashar always says you cannot experience something that you are not the vibration of, right? So in order for us to finally take that next step forward with communicating with other races off planet, we need to have the awareness first that they even exist. So I do think we are on that trajectory of moving in that direction. And who knows, maybe we're already there. Some people surmise that we already have people on Mars and on the moon. That's questionable. We don't know that for sure, but that could very well be the case. It could be behind the scenes. The government could be managing that process, and just we don't know about it quite yet. I think there is a lot to learn. There's a lot to come down the pipeline as far as information, and I think we're at that precipice right now of people really opening their eyes to what actually is out there. And to kind of dovetail off what you just mentioned as far as things are about to change, I mean, you're absolutely right in that, to the degree that everything will change, like literally everything, like to the degree of healthcare, food we eat, medicine, how we manage, like money. What are we going to have actual money anymore? What is that going to look like?
That is already changing. It's already, I think COVID prepared us. It wasn't a great thing, but it prepared us for change.
This has been on my mind, and I meant to ask our last guest. There was a situation down in Florida recently. My question to you is,
the mall in Florida.
Yes. And so much came out of that. I was just wondering what your take on that was.
Well, I don't know. It may have been true. I don't know. It was strange. But
it was strange.
I don't know what happened. So, I mean, I followed that case a little bit, but, we're getting these beeps of anomalies happening. And I think that's what the UFO phenomena prepares us for. It prepares us for the unexpected, the unexplained. We have to incorporate these things. And of course, there are hoaxes and things like that, but there are real things that are happening. Crop circles. I was in a crop circle a couple of years ago, and it's like, you cannot make this on the ground. It was too complex. It was too big. So the world's always been full of mysteries. I think the internet, though, has helped us share those mysteries instead of bringing it through those like official words, official media. Remember when there were only 3 television stations?
Oh my gosh, right?
I don't know what to make of the Florida mall situation. There is something for sure happening here. There is a phenomena that cannot be denied, no matter how much the government denies it. It's happening. It's real. People are having experiences. They're making contact. What that is, what kind of contact, what are the nature of the intelligence that are there? Well, the government doesn't want to tell us, and they don't want to tell us because they don't want to disrupt their hold on the cultural engineering and manipulation that they are always been doing.
You just said something that was really interesting. You brought religion, and I think as much as the government wouldn't want to go down this road for many reasons, I also think that religion would have a very big problem with it as well, because it would make everyone second guess,
Right.
And that's kind of where I was at the beginning of my journey, was like, well, I'm religious and this doesn't go along with what I was brought up with or what I think.
It's the end of the time of religion for those recovering Catholics and other religions. But because religion is based on belief. And you know what I think belief is? It's conjecture. It's make-believe. Do you believe or do you make-believe? And it's just sort of like taking someone else's word. There's things beyond belief, which is gnosis, knowing, what the Greeks called gnosis, that, which is, do you know? Like, you're sitting there in that room talking, that. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to believe it. So when it transcends all those lower possibilities, which is religion, belief, or faith, whatever you want to call it.
And Alan, you mentioned a little bit a few minutes ago, you mentioned that you have had an experience as well.
I'm looking for my book. Yes, in chapter 7 of Making Contact, talk about this trip I had cross country where I was driving with my girlfriend at the time, and we had pulled off the road because we were driving all day. We're going from the West Coast to the East Coast, and we just passed out. We just kind of went to sleep, but it felt like we were suspended in time. We woke up sort of the next morning early, and I don't know why I still remember this, but whatever. We woke up in the same position we went to bed in, like we were frozen in time, like suspend. I mean, I don't know how I fell asleep last night. I don't know why that stands out in my mind. And I called her recently saying, oh, I wrote a chapter about us, our adventures about, and she goes, oh, the night we were frozen in time. I mean, she said that. She remembered that 30 years later. And then I had a mark on the back of my leg, a little 4-prong puncture mark. And I thought that was weird. I said, oh, that must have been a spider bite or something like that. Until I got to New York and I started to meet other people connected to the UFO movement that I was sort of aware of, but I met Bud Hopkins. You know who Bud Hopkins is?
Mm-hmm.
He was,
yes.
Well, I was part of his intruders group after this, and he said, or his people said, oh yeah, that's an abduction mark. I said, really? And that freaked me out because I didn't remember anything that happened. So, but it also pulled me down the rabbit hole, it sucked me down the rabbit hole. It was traumatic because I didn't want to know what happened, but I also was obsessed with whatever's happened. And that happens in trauma. You push it away, but then you also want to know everything. So it's a state of cognitive dissonance of sorts where you have two different things going on. And there is a trauma to the UFO phenomena for sure, because there's nothing in our understanding of reality that prepares us for this, except maybe reading books or talking to other people. But if you just have an experience on your own, most people say, what was that? Or they block it out. But then as more and more people come forward, there's a reference point for your experiences. And I think that's the benefit of writing the book I wrote, but also programs like this where people said, oh yeah, I had a weird experience. Or instead of pushing it out of your mind, integrate your experience into the totality of your reality and then see who you really are. Yeah, so things will resonate and some things will say, I'm not sure, it's not my experience, like the Florida Mall thing. That could be true. There were ETs that landed in the Florida Mall, or I don't. But there are experiences that I feel are true, and then there's some things that are way beyond what some people have claimed to be to Mars. I'm not quite there yet, but I do think we've been abducted by aliens, which seems just as bizarre. I mean, I can't even believe I'm actually saying that because it sounds so strange. There's no place in our reality to put those experiences. Just imagine for yourself. You're home alone, the doors are locked, the windows are closed, you're kind of falling asleep, and there's something at the foot of your bed. I mean, even if they're friendly, that is traumatic. That is like earth-shaking until you start to understand, well, maybe we can move through walls and time and space, and maybe there are other dimensions that are unfolding in front of us. And I think there are other dimensional realities that are right now here in this space. I mean, I'm a dimensional reality. I'm not on this flat screen. I mean, I appear on the flat screen there, like I'm talking to you, and it's like that's a two-dimensional thing. But I think I know I'm three-dimensional, sitting beyond this space there and here in this space here. But there may be other spaces all around that are observing all of us.
Your story about being in the car driving down the road, it reminds me of the Betty and Barney Hill story when they got abducted.
All these stories of contact and have a similar theme. There is a sort of missing time. There's sort of a manipulation. There's something called the Oz effect, where you kind of go into these alternate states of consciousness. It's like being a little drunk or high or something like that. And it's like there's an altered state that happens. And I have a whole theory about why that is, because when these beings show up, these alien beings, they are not at our vibration. Like right now, I know you're both human, you eat and sleep, and you've had parents and all those human things. When you're in the presence of these other beings, just their presence alone is so shocking because you don't know what to make of them. And they also emit a kind of vibrational field that is different than our field. So you're in this larger thought form reality. In my book, the chapter Daryl Anker writes about, there's a section there where he writes about meeting Bashar. And he says, it was in a dream state. Bashar's ship landed. He gets out of the ship and he walks towards Daryl, and Daryl starts to panic vibration of Bashar is so different than Daryl that the whole sense of self, this false identity that we have as like, oh, you're Tracy, you're Tara, you think that's who you are, you think that's your history, you think you look like that, you think all those things about yourself, that starts to evaporate. It's like that false sense of self is just absorbed and, in a sense, annihilated. And so you have to be really lucid in your consciousness that you're not your false egoic identity in order to start to make contact with these other beings. Because if you hold on to who you are, it's just going to be sucked out of you. So it takes a practice of lucid awareness, of meditation, of being the observer of your reality, of all those things to start to be making contact, because we can meet them on an even playing field just as long as you're not attached to who you think you are. Does that make sense?
It does. And I've heard Bashar talk about this as well in different videos I've watched. And a lot of times people, when they go see him in person, they'll say, I want to have an experience. And he 9 times out of 10 says, you couldn't handle it, because if we actually showed up, your body just cannot manage the vibration that we emit. But that brings up the question of, okay, but how do we bridge that gap? Like, at what point can we have that moment where we actually do connect with each other and have contact? Because I think we're heading in that direction right now, but are we needing to raise our consciousness level as a society so that we don't have as much cognitive dissonance when that moment happens?
Absolutely. Otherwise, you cannot get Wi-Fi on an AM radio. That's what my analogy is. You have to raise your vibration. Like I said, you can't be attached to who you are, Tara, Tracy. That's who I am. But those are egoic attachments that keep your greater sense of self in a very limited window. And when you let go of the limitations, you come into a greater unlimited field, like, oh, I'm a forever being, I'm eternal. And then when you could hold that vibration, you can start to meet these other beings on the level they exist. So it's possible, but you have to give up all, like Buddha said, all your attachments to everything you think you are, your baseball team, your political party, your family history, your name, your religions. All those things keep us at a very low vibration. And it's great. If you want to live there, you can live there. But if you want to meet the others and come to raise your field, your molecular field, this is what they do with Joe Dispenza's work. They raise the vibration, and they're not the old self. They've, and that's where healing comes in too. You can't be the old self and expect to be healed as a new self. You have to let go of who you think you are in order to become who you really are. When I was interviewing Daryl and Bashar, I said to Bashar, because he was sitting close to me, I said, wow, this vibration feels really great. Can you raise the frequency a little bit? And he goes, no, we cannot. We'll blow out the channel's body if we do that. And I said, okay. I said, just a little bit. He said, no, because I really felt his vibratory field. And I don't know if that happened on camera or not, but he would not go any further because he knows the limits of just the vibration of that body. So the ascension process, maybe you've talked about this on the show or might in the future, it's all about raising the field of the physical body so we can meet ourselves, the others, the higher frequencies, the fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it, at the level that we can graduate to. And it is a sort of graduation because the 3D, as Bashar says, is as low as it gets. It doesn't get any denser than this. And say, get all the density you can, because we're moving someplace else. So get it while you can. Be as dense as you want to be, because the times, they are changing.
I was thinking to myself that and this is going to sound a little weird, but I am still making my way over to the other side. I've had, and I've said this to Tara, I've had so many moments of this has happened before. It's been so much lately. Like, this must be that vibration. This is the vibration that seems to be hitting even people who don't even know, like myself, because I am friends with Tara. That, do you feel like that's why most might be feeling these things?
Absolutely. You are changing vibration. And when you change vibration, you're actually changing timelines. You're not, this is something Bashar also talks about. You come into a new timeline where maybe in the old timeline, you had seen that or something, but you're knowing more, you're feeling more, you're sensing this is a sign of your evolution, Tracy. So accept it. We're graduating. You're part of the graduate. Okay. So
Yes.
it's really fun when you can start to play in those realms and not be freaked out by and just say, oh yeah, that was just a jump in timelines and that was great. And here we are in a new time, in a new place. And it kind of clears the board. It kind of makes everything fresh. So go with it, accept it, and enjoy it because times they are changing. Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
on that topic, I'm just curious. When we do raise our vibration, and I know this is just purely everyone's opinion, but when we do raise it to, let's say, another level, whatever that means, does that give us a new set point, or are we constantly having to try to raise our vibration over time? Because there's times that we all don't feel great, right? We all have days that we're kind of down, or maybe something happened and it lowers our vibration. It makes us not feel so happy and joyful. But are like every time we raise our vibration, are we raising it to a new set point, or are we constantly needing to bring it back to that same level and try to raise it beyond that?
Well, when you climb up a ladder or go up a set of stairs and you go back a few steps, doesn't mean you have to go to the bottom of the stairs. It means, like, there's that movement and maybe, something pulls you back down, but you're still moving. You're still moving forward. It's, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but you're still in motion. So yeah, your set point is always changing, if that's what you mean. And you're always evolving. And you're not going to go back to, like, the beginning of where you were. And consciousness is always expanding and building on itself. So you're okay, Tara. You're not going back to the bottom of the stairs. You'll be okay.
We don't want to be all the way at the bottom.
No, you're moving. Just by watching Star Trek was a move that lifted you up, and boom, you're at a whole other level, or you've changed timelines. Yes.
I get credit because Star Trek, the movie, the most latest one, is my favorite in the world.
Yeah, you get credit for that. That's
Thank
good.
you. All 3 of them. With Chris
Well,
Pine.
not to keep quoting our friend Bashar, but just on the topic of what we were just discussing, he does reference the fact that when you go to the depths, let's say, of despair, and you're at the bottom of, the limit of where you can possibly go for your emotional toll, and then you release that, it's like a rubber band, right? That you're pulling it back so tight, so far, and then when you release it, it just shoots that much further forward. And so by being in this 3D world, we are ultimately accelerating our consciousness by multitudes beyond what others may not be experiencing, because they're not having the depth of angst or despair or challenges and trauma that we're experiencing being here.
Exactly. And that's why he said you've gone as deep and as low as you can possibly go in density. So guess what? Maybe the rubber band going forward will bring us into joy and peace and possibilities that were unimaginable but you do have to embrace the depth. You can't say, oh, I'm not looking at that, I'm not going there, because if you don't embrace it, you're going to miss that rubber band going forward. So embrace the despair, the depression, and know that it's not going to last. Know that by embracing it, you face, you embrace, you erase or evolve, that's part of the human experience. And we came here for the totality of the human experience. That's why we've incarnated over and over again. And, I think in my last lifetime, I think I went to a pretty low place in World War II in the concentration camps. That was not a picnic. And I remember some of that. I was just talking to someone else. We think we knew each other back then. And that is as low as it gets, I think. I mean, of course, those things are still happening. It's not like we're, and if it's happening in this timeline that we're experiencing, it's part of our reality. So, yes, we're not living through that here in this country, but there are people that are in our realities that are. So that's keeping, and unless we can change all that, because we're a collective field of consciousness, it's going to keep us from not evolving. So all these, awful things that are still happening are still in our field. That is, keeping us at a certain vibration. Of course, it's a whole range.
And switching gears on some topics here, and I don't know how you feel about this. I think you touched a little bit upon it earlier, but what are your thoughts on the secret space program? Have you heard of this? Are you familiar? What do you think about that?
I don't see any evidence of that. I think we have yet to achieve that. I think the government knows a lot more. I think they do have advanced propulsion airships, but I don't think we've left the planet yet as humans, as earthlings. I do think there are beings, though, that have had that technology, that are here from someplace else. And I know people have claimed to be part of the secret space program and we're on Mars, but I don't buy it. That's the limitation of my belief system. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just saying I don't see evidence in the reality that I'm aware of that is true. I think just dealing with the fact that there's beings here, that for sure is true. That we maybe have bodies, that people are probably getting abducted, taking off planet, being examined, having DNA extracted, and there's hybrid beings of ETs and humans being formed. I think that's a lot without having to go into secret space program and all that. And I'm just saying it's not true in my belief system, but it could be true, and I have yet to expand there. But where I'm at, it's like, that's just kind of a distraction for me, for what we already know. And that alone is hard enough to believe. So, I mean, there are crash retrievals. They have reverse engineered. The Area 51 is a reality. I mean, there's things that are pretty out there. They can materialize and dematerialize, but I don't think humans have gotten that technology. I do believe possibly that humans have been taken off planet. There was a woman, Elizabeth Clark from South Africa, who was taken to Proxima Centauri, which is sort of the closest planetary system to Earth. We could have come from there, possibly. I think, so I think, but when you say secret space program, I think of the US having the capabilities of going in outer space and exchanging. And I did meet this guy, I forgot his name, but he said, oh yeah, we're on Mars, we're exporting things to the rest of the solar system. I said, well, what are we exporting to the rest of the solar system? He said, beer. Says the aliens really like Earth beer. And I thought, I have a bridge in Brooklyn I want to sell you then. No, I thought that was a little ridiculous.
I've heard that before too. The beer and children's clothing for whatever reason.
I think that's insane. I think that is like total fabrication. Of course, people may think what I'm saying is total fabrication. So there's like levels of belief, but just that one's not getting me just yet,
That's when I have a hard time making my leap. I'm not there yet. And I think it's very kind of you and very respectful of you, Alan. I like the way you put it. I'm not there yet.
I'm very practical. Like, if you just look at what the government has said so far, and the inside, Grush, for instance, and I do think he is sincere. I think he's honest. You could just look at his face. This is not a guy who has some other agenda. I don't think he was put up to it to lie. I think he's reporting what he's heard, that there are bodies there are crash retrievals, there are aliens, there is a kind of interdimensional quality to this. And I think that's sort of the leading edge. I mean, he doesn't talk about abductions, but Lou Alexander does. Someone asked Lou what he thought about alien abductions, he said, well, this is something that's very serious that we have to look at. He did not deny it. And I've talked to lots of people who, I mean, I don't know what happened during my abduction. I mean, I was sort of regressed once, but the thing about regression, and I don't know if you know about hypnosis, it's like you're not actually remembering what happens because you're not actually there when it's happening. You kind of just blank out in trauma. So when you say you remember, I mean, maybe, but it's not the same as, oh, I know what happened yesterday. It's like, it's sort of like a fabrication almost of possibility. So I don't know. I do think hypnosis is a great way to extract memories and relieve trauma, but I don't really know. I know something happened, and I know that probably my whole life I've been in touch with things. Like I used to see faces at the window, and I was really drawn to science fiction. And then when Star Trek would come on in the 1960s, I would stop everything I was doing, whether it was dinner or going out. I had to be there watching every single episode because it was what I didn't think of it as truth. I said, wow, this is feeding me. It was nourishing my soul.
I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on the future of healthcare? I know I keep hearing about these med beds.
With the technology that's aboard these ships, especially if you've been abducted or been on board and you've been examined, there's definitely more sophisticated ways of vibrationally, just measuring your vibration, upscaling your vibration in a sort of med bed type environment is the future. I think once that's the crime that the government is committing by not allowing this technology out to the public. The medical upgrades, if they have technologies that, they're not, put it this way, they're not filling up their gas tank to get here from wherever they are. So if they have this unlimited energy source, why are we still enslaved to, companies, gas and electric companies, that when everyone can have a little box in their house giving them all the energy they need, they can put in their car? It's like we're being controlled and manipulated by the money makers. This has nothing to do with aliens. It has to do with greedy people. We're being exploited and being taken advantage of, which is a right that belonged to the American people to have this technology and not put in the hands of those who's trying to make money off of it. So that's the revolution that's coming. And that's what's the big controversy inside the Pentagon. There are people pushing for UFO disclosure, and then there's parts of the government saying, no, there's nothing to look at here. And it's a real constitutional issue. I think it's a big breaking point for the change of government in a way.
I agree. I've actually interviewed Stephen Bassett about this before, and he has a lot to say on that topic. But I think, and we kind of started with this concept earlier on when we first started talking, is, well, what do we do about it? Right? Like, I mean, where do we go next to try to bring this? I mean, I guess we do things like this, but what else can be done to kind of push this agenda forward?
Well, Stephen Bassett's one of the hardest working people in the UFO field. He has been at it for like 40 years, pushing the UFO disclosure agenda, the truth embargo, as he says. And he's part of a people's movement. We cannot expect government to come forward, but we can. Like recently, there was a rally in front of Chuck Schumer's office because he came out with the Schumer Amendment for disclosure, and we just wanted to acknowledge him for standing up for the truth. So we need to keep coming forward. And so, truth, that Schopenhauer quote where he says truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's denied, then it's ridiculed, and then it's self-evident. Well, we're coming out of the ridicule phase into the self-evident phase. And so we're about, I don't know, 20 or 30 years. I mean, Bashar says maybe sooner, 2026, 27. I mean, something's happening, and you're right. It will change everything we know about ourselves, about our history as human beings. I mean, where did we come from? It might do away with religion. It may not, because people still have the chance to believe whatever they want to believe, which is great. But it will change technology. It will change biology. And that's what we're being denied. We're being denied our right to the truth. This is why Linda Moulton Howe says we're an abused race of beings who have been suppressed and oppressed from knowing the truth and being kept in the dark because someone wants to make money off of the reverse crash retrieval, reverse technologies that belong to the American people. And so we have to just push our Congress people for the truth that belongs to us. We're owed the truth. We're not children. Oh, you can't handle it. It's like we can handle it as much as anyone who knows anything else. But like I said in the beginning, and why I wrote the book, Making Contact from 12 Different Points of View, is that no one has the whole truth. It's not known. We don't have all the pieces of the puzzle together because maybe, like we said earlier, we're not ready for some of the vibrational upgrades that are needed to embrace some of that truth. But we know a lot more, or a lot more is known than what we're being told. And we have to push for, okay, let demand Congress to hold hearings where we roll out the craft, we roll out the bodies, and we say, okay, this is what we're dealing with, not just the American public, but people of the world. How are we going to make sense of this? How are we going to welcome these beings into our field of consciousness, into the human experience? And we'll upgrade the possibilities of what we think is true. This is why it's so valuable we start to acknowledge it, because the nature of our own human experiences start to change. Maybe we realize we're smarter, we're more multidimensional, then maybe we can raise our vibrations at will. There's so much more comes online once this little piece of the puzzle is put in place. And it makes the whole world exciting. I think it's a great drama, though, that we're in. It's like a Shakespearean drama. It's like, will we know the truth, or will the government come in and it's like, oh, here's a little bit more. Just last week, they released a top secret document called Kona Blue, which, did you see that? Which talked about reverse engineering possibilities. They say it was never passed, but they talked about dematerialization and rematerialization technologies. That's really out there in a government paper. It's like, so the government knows a lot more than we do, but they don't know it all. And that's one of the reasons they're also holding back. How do you explain, well, we have this phenomena, but and we can't protect anyone from it. Not that we need protection from it. So how do you explain like $1 trillion Defense Department? That's just my experience.
I from what I understand, there is stories that aliens had visited Eisenhower back in the 60s. And they brought with them a message of, you've got to bring this information forward. And then that got squashed. And then JFK was about to release this information to the public. And then we know what happened to him. And then supposedly there was more information going to be coming out. And then it was 9/11. So it's just been one thing after another that keeps this information from coming out. And at this point, I feel like even though there's going to be a lot of cognitive dissonance, we just have to rip off the Band-Aid. We just have to go for it and let whatever's going to happen, good or bad, right? Good, bad, or indifferent.
That is a great way of looking at it. And I am writing about that in my next book. It's a rude awakening that we're going to come into. But it's our only hope in a way. We're destroying the planet, we're destroying each other, and ripping off the band-aid. Yes, that's a great analogy, and it is going to be a shock, and get over it, because that's the nature of reality as it really is. Or you could live in your little fantasy world that we're all alone in the universe, and life is an accident, and nothing means anything, and that's like, no, maybe there's something more, and maybe life is an emergent property of creation itself, and things do have meaning, and we're here for a bigger picture of reality. So we're really right at that turning point where the edge of the band-aid's lifting off, and it's like, how fast you're going to pull that. And
we're getting into the public pool. You know what's coming next when the band-aid starts lifting and you get in the pool.
Exactly.
That's so gross.
So it's good. It's all good, because that's so exciting for me, that the world finally has a chance to be something different than 10,000 years of war and starvation and abuse and all those awful. That maybe a new civilization, star date. Maybe we'll start star date 5121 here, and that's a new cycle. And you would not be doing this program a couple of years ago, would you, Tara? Because you weren't at that vibration.
I was not.
So there's hope for everyone.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you can point us to that you're producing? We can deliver to the audience here.
Yeah, well, I'm going to be at Contact in the Desert of May 30th to June 3rd in Indian Wells, California, right outside of Palm Springs. It's going to be a great conference. I mean, this is where the cream of the crop come to meet. This is where the latest researchers and the experiencers and people with the most far out, or the most, inside sort of scoop. This is where it really happens. And so it's a real coming together of community, where you can talk freely and openly about the most, out there concept or idea. So I'm speaking there, and I'm emceeing there. I'm hosting some panels. I'm hosting a panel on remote viewing, actually. So that'll be fun, with some really well-known remote viewers. Actually, possibly Russell Targ will be there, who started the Stanford Research Institute. He's the one who taught me remote viewing. Oh, I'm doing a galactic cruise. You should come on that. And I'm doing that December 14th to December 21st. So that'll be a great. We're going to do a CE5 out on the deck of the ship as we pass through the Bermuda Triangle. So I think.
Oh, I love that.
It's going to be, for those that want to risk that, it's going to be. We're going to change the nature of reality at that point. So that'll be fun. What else am I doing? My book, Making Contact, Preparing for the New Realities of Extraterrestrial Existence. So you can get that on Amazon. It's published by St. Martin's Press. There's always a million things. I'm always at the Conscious Life Expo in February, and LAX Hilton. I was just at the New Living Expo. I'm going to be in New York at an expo called New Life in October. That's New York City. Look up newlifeexpo.com. And just find me online at newrealities@earthlink.net. You can email me a question or an answer or an experience. Oh, I love interviewing experiencers. I think all of this together just makes a really kind of new realities that we're moving into. So I think we have to be open to the unknown and what seems impossible. I'm opening up to things like we've just discussed here that may seem impossible to me, but maybe it's true. Maybe there is a secret space program. Maybe they are selling beer to Martians. I don't know. As John Mack says, he says this in my book. Do you know who John Mack was?
Yes.
Right. Tracy, John Mack was a Harvard psychiatrist who started to interview people about their alien abductions, and Harvard said, "You must be crazy." And he goes, "Nope, I'm not crazy, and these people are not crazy. They're having a real experience." And of course they tried to fire him, but he stood up for the truth. And he was, freedom of speech. He said, you can't tell people what to say. This is what Danny Sheehan came forward to help John Mack defend against Harvard, who wanted to fire him. So John Mack validated people's experience from a psychiatric point of view, said, no, these people are not any crazier than anyone else. They just had an experience that is outside the realm of possibility, as we know possibility to be. So that's what's exciting when we go into what is previously unknown and bring it into our reality. So if you're listening to this conversation and it seems a little strange, open up to a part of it. And once that's open, other things start to come in to our reality, right?
Thank you so much for sharing all this information with us today. We really do appreciate it, Alan. And I know you've worked tirelessly for many years at this. And I think as a society, we all appreciate the work that you've done.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, check out Alan's book and his YouTube channel and his website, and we'll have him on again in the future when he writes his next book. So thank you so much, Alan, and we will wrap it up for today, but take care and we'll talk to you soon.